All right, welcome into the next edition of the Vegas Squares podcast. It has been approximately 2 months, but I think this is the first time in a while that the original crew has been in studio. So, not that I care how you guys are doing after these last 2 months, Spike, but
Yes.
what have you been doing this summer?
So immediately after the Cup final, the wife and I packed up our brand new puppy. We got in the car and we drove for 2.5 weeks cross country. We saw family, we saw friends, saw national parks. I didn't tell my dad we were coming, so that was kind of a nice surprise.
Conspiracy father?
Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, in the end, it was 7,300 miles, 150 some odd hours in the car, and 30 states, and we had a blast.
30 states, holy cow.
Sounds pretty fun.
I don't think I've seen 30 states. Maybe I have, I don't know. That's a lot at one time, though.
Yeah, it was a lot. And, I mean, in reality, to do this kind of trip properly, we probably should have taken a month or more because there was, like, we didn't even get to see the Grand Canyon.
You can see that. It's around here.
Yeah, I know. But, I mean, there was a lot of stuff that we wanted to see and spend more time at that we really didn't get to. The only things, aside from family, that we really enjoyed were, like, my dad's place in New Hampshire, her mom's cabin in Maine, and Yellowstone. We were there for a while, and we spent a bunch of time in Memphis because we liked the barbecue, Civil Rights Museum, and like a bunch of other shit. So, yeah, I mean, it was a grand old time. The dog got to meet about every person on the planet, and he's.
How do you do in the car? That's usually the big key is, because some dogs love the car, some dogs can't stand it.
He wasn't super happy in the car, but, I mean, he wasn't, throwing a fit. Every time we got out, he was happy to get out and stretch his legs. But
yeah.
And there were only, I think, 2 days where we were in the car for 10 hours or more, so.
Okay.
What barbecue did you get in Memphis?
I don't remember the name of the place, but
Did you go downtown Memphis?
Yeah, I mean, it was right next to the Civil Rights Museum.
Is that Rendezvous?
Right behind it. Might have been, yeah.
The one that's kind of like tucked away?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the best one.
Yeah,
that one in...
so fucking good.
Yeah, we had a couple. I've only been to Memphis once. We went for a bowl game, actually. And, you can definitely get lost in just eating and being on Beale Street and everything. It's a pretty cool experience. So, Tony, you are officially back to normal in your life.
Yes.
I'll give you a second here. We talk about the Open. I know the last two podcasts have been about the British Open or the Open, however you want to classify your casual golf fandom. But what's your life? I mean, what's your life been like as far as getting back to normal schedule, being able to watch sports now? Because every time I text you, you're like, I'm sleeping or I'm working. I'm not watching any kind of sporting event.
Pretty much just mainly catching up on sleep right now. I actually did get out earlier today and play some tennis, so I'm starting to get that back of my life. So.
There you go. Very nice, very nice. So anyway, I'll let you gloat here because on the last podcast, I do believe you either had him competing, you had him to win on your futures, but Molinari was the winner of the Open, and as much as Tony Johnson told you to fade him, I don't know if you listened to him or not, but you definitely called him if you bet him.
Yes, I did not bet him.
You've been betting him the last 3 months.
I just didn't see that much value in him I saw him at best 25 to 1. I knew he dropped down to 18 to 1 right before first round. So,
now let me ask you guys both a question. We're all recreational bettors for the most part here at this point. When you talk about finding good value, and I believe in it too. A lot of times, obviously with my Spurs ticket that I took, we talked about last podcast. If you feel the guy's going to win, does it matter where he sits? If you feel that it's got to be value there where he sits, say. Well, Molinari, if you believe he's going to win the Open Championship, 25 to 1, 18 to 1, I understand you saying there's not really a lot of value there, but if you feel he's going to win, well, what's the difference at that point?
Well, to me, I didn't feel like he was that strong of a feeling to win. I actually liked Oosthuizen the most out of the ones right around the 20 to 1 to 60 to 1. And
he was around 60, wasn't he?
Yeah, I got him at 61. I was trying to get him at 80 and 1, but the line dropped before I was able to get that ticket in. So,
all right, fair enough. I was giving you a chance to gloat. I figured you bet him because you were all over him in the last two podcasts, and especially you and I do side prop bets, and that's like one of the guys you pick every single time, including this time actually.
Yeah, usually him and Schwartzel or something, but Schwartzel I've been fading for sure.
Probably a good idea. Yeah. So
I know he ended up missing the cut this time, so good fade.
You talked about hockey a little bit since the Stanley Cup Finals. That was the last chance we were all in this room to talk. Spike, let's talk about the offseason a little bit. I mean, not just Vegas, but the offseason in general. Obviously, the big name was Tavares moving. Any initial thoughts on kind of the shakeup in the East as far as is Toronto maybe the new favorite?
No, I think they still have too many questions, and I still think that Tampa is too good. Pittsburgh's obviously got to be up there, and of course Washington. So I don't think that this move, it puts them in contention, but it doesn't put them so far over the top that it has to be Toronto in the field.
No, of course not. But I mean, I think it moves them up. I mean, what?
No, for sure. And I think with Tavares this year, they obviously get past Boston. And,
right.
They certainly make a deeper run in the playoffs than they did this year. But it shouldn't make them the favorite out of the East.
Seems pretty legit to me. I think with all the moves that have been changing around the Eastern Conference, Tampa Bay still looks up top, especially with their depth in their roster as well as their goaltending. I think Vasilevsky is going to have another terrific season.
And let's not forget if Tampa gets Erik Karlsson as well.
That's
just going to be disgusting.
It will. I just don't know financially where they're gonna fit that in right now. Next year, when he's a free agent, they'll have the cap space available, but then they'll be competing with every other team. Obviously, with Vegas and Tampa Bay both being players, quote unquote, in the Erik Karlsson sweepstakes, I've been paying close attention to that movement. But right now, unless Ryan Callahan's willing to be moved, I can't see the financial opportunity for them to be able to take on Karlsson, unless somehow they can get rid of Callahan and Johnson, who both have no movement clauses. So good luck with that.
Yeah, and that's sort of the problem. But I think that
those guys are going to go to Ottawa.
Oh no. Well, no. I mean, it's obviously a dumpster fire. But they would, any team that takes on Karlsson is going to want to sign and trade. They're not just going to want the typical sign for a year and then compete against everybody else in free agency. So whatever the deal is that they get, they're probably working with the front office of Ottawa to say, structure the deal like this for the long-term extension and then trade him to us.
Well, absolutely. At this point.
So that way, if Tampa Bay, if they only have X number of dollars to spend this year, but next year they have the funds, then they tell Ottawa to structure their extension in such a way that it works for Tampa Bay.
Year one's a low grade.
Exactly. You backload the contract and whatever else. But I mean, and again, is he even going to be moved? Which we don't know for sure that's going to happen, because now the rumors are he's saying he wants to stay in Ottawa. He just doesn't want to stay under this ownership.
Under Melnick's control.
Right.
And I think he's made that clear on a few occasions. He wants to stay in Ottawa as a player, as a person, as a product of the city. But I think the entire city can all agree that Melnick's got to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's got to be the most hated person in Ottawa right now.
Absolutely. And speaking of Karlsson with Vegas and all the links and everything, I don't know if it's just us being local, but I want to get your guys' takes on this. It seems to me, and obviously it's a cap space thing, and I don't know if this will always be the situation or the issue, but being an adult in a local hockey market hasn't been something I've been privy to, because in my adult years I lived in Orlando. When I was a kid, I obviously followed the Lightning, but I didn't follow all the day-to-day stuff. I followed the on-ice. Now it seems that Vegas is linked to every single player that becomes available. And it gets a little annoying because there's a lot of media outlets that really are just spitfiring, just complete nonsense. And there's a couple that have legitimate cases, and they know who they are, but there's also everybody that you just see bing, 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 just anywhere that... it just seems like Vegas is linked to every single player. Is that a product of just, I wouldn't say an uneducated media market, because that's not 100% true, but is it just a product of that, or is it a product of the fact that we have so much salary and that's not always going to be the case?
Yeah, well, I think it's a combination of a few things, and it's going to be player dependent as well. Like with Erik Karlsson, not William, quote unquote, league's best Karlsson.
Who quote unquote that one?
Me. I love trolling Ottawa fans on Reddit because it's the funniest thing ever.
I thought it was. What's that? All right, never mind. There was going to be a joke there. But who was the Karlsson for San Jose? I thought he was the best Karlsson.
Oh my God.
Is it Mikhail Karlsson?
No. It's fuck.
I don't know. Anyway,
yeah, whatever.
The joke didn't land.
Wow.
The joke didn't land.
Yeah, no, that was painful. I apologize to anybody with ears after that one.
Melker Karlsson.
Melker, there we go.
Melker Karlsson.
All right, so I think with like the Erik Karlsson sweepstakes, it was because Vegas was in on it during the regular season that now that the season is over and the talks were heating up, that Vegas was getting back into it. The fact that they have cap space helps. Plus, I mean, let's face it, we have such a new market, such an exciting market. I don't know that it's an uneducated fan base so much as media hype and the person that wanting to break that story first. You know, I think, like, you know, between Sinbin, the RJ, the Sun, all of the sports talk radio. By the way, and one of the things that I wanted to talk about, which we don't have to get to on this podcast, but another podcast, I need to talk about CBS Sports Radio before the season starting, throwing that fucking hissy fit and saying we're not going to cover any Knights games, we're not going to do any Knights coverage, we're not going to talk about the scores, we're not going to do this, that, and the other thing. And then they reverse themselves in less than 24 hours after everybody.
CBS Sports, do they have a radio outlet here?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 1140, I think.
Yeah, 1140 or it's 98.9 FM.
No, that's Fox Sports.
Oh, no,
They signed the rights to the. How would they not show any? How would they not play Knights games?
No, Fox got the play-by-play deal, so CBS threw a hissy fit and they said,
well, 98.9 is Fox. I know that because I listen to that pretty frequently. So that's why I was curious. You threw me for a loop there for a second.
Anyway, so that's neither here nor there. But I mean, we have such a vast sports market for talk radio, print, and everything else that people want to be the one that says, "I was the first one to link this player to Vegas." Mm-hmm. Whether or not they even have a modicum of information when they make that claim, I think that's what's kind of driving this kind of thing, because they want to be the ones to say that they were there first. Just like prom night.
I was say that seems like media in general at this point. You know, it's like there's so many outlets. I mean, not to be, you know, a dick, but I mean, we're included in those outlets. Not the two people who may get their information from us.
Oh, of course. Which is why I'm breaking right now. Matt Murray is going to be the backup goalie in Vegas before the end of the season.
Ooh. I don't buy that for a fucking second, but ooh.
Nor should you.
That'd be interesting.
What's the line on that one? Because I'd like to fade you, sir.
I think no is about minus 15,000.
Yeah, I was going to say minus 20,000.
Yeah, how crazy would that be? But you know, speaking of backup goalies, you know. In Vegas, Fleury signed this extension, 3 years, $21 million, which effectively gives him 4 years more on his deal. It's received mixed reviews. I think the fans like it because a lot of the fans don't pay attention day-to-day to salary cap and, you know, the ability, just talking to people on Facebook about, you know, they love it and some people hate it, and then some people asking about, you know, why can't we just sign everybody we want to, you know, and give them all $50 million? Well, you know, there's a reason why. It's called the cap. Anthony, what are your initial thoughts on Fleury's, you know, $7 million per year deal that takes him through basically his twilight years as a goalie?
I mean, I still think he's a very key player for the locker room as well as on the ice when he's healthy, for sure. I mean, he's probably one of the top 5 to 8 goalies in the NHL right now. Depends on everybody's viewpoint of it.
Well, you would say this year he was, but
yeah.
Spike, I'm sure you know this a little more, is throughout his career, and while he's won 3 Stanley Cups, he's been a regression to the mean goalie. He either looks really, really good or he looks really, really bad. He's never really that average kind of goalie. I mean, he falls into that category.
Right, and he's streaky as well, and he reminds me, let's see if you remember this name, he reminds me a lot of Brian Daubach of the old Boston Red Sox.
He was a second baseman, wasn't he?
Yeah, utility infielder.
Played for the Twins, too, right?
He might have, yeah.
Okay.
But Daubach was the kind of guy that would, you know, for
14?
What's that?
You wear 14?
Oh, I don't remember that.
All right, I'll look it up.
Look it up, yeah. Crack research staff.
She's on vacation.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he was the kind of guy that, you know, for 30 games in a row, he would have an average of about $1.90, and then the next 30 games he'd hit like $4.50, and it was just streak after streak after streak. And I think Fleury's kind of the same way, but I think part of that too is that he's been the product of the team around him. And Pittsburgh for a number of years had, you know, all offense, no defense. So, you know, it's tough to be the kind of goalie that you need Fleury to be when he's facing 40 shots a night.
Yeah.
You know, eventually shit's going to go in.
He got a ring, actually, with Boston in 04. He wasn't on that team, though.
He must have been a backup.
He played 28 games that year. So
Yeah.
I don't know if he was.
okay.
I don't know if he was on the playoff roster. He wore 13. In Boston, he wore 23. In Minnesota, he wore 13.
All right, that makes sense.
But I knew who you were talking about. He played second base, first base, and outfield. So he was kind of a utility guy, like you said.
I always remember him because he was the first guy I saw that had hair and beard at the exact same length, and the hair just kind of went into the beard as a chin strap.
That's what I'm working on right now.
There you go.
But yeah, I mean, I don't love the contract. I don't hate the contract. Right now, looking at it, as far as, and by the way, I don't know if you guys know this. This site called CapFriendly.com is fantastic for being able to keep track with, especially hockey with a hard cap. Especially with hockey and football with a hard cap, it's been able to be a very good resource. $7 million does seem a lot, especially when he had a year left on his deal, and I mean, let's face it, there was no other bidders. That was my kind of thing. Is I think Fleury would have been happy with 5.5 or 6. Now, does that million and a half in 3 years really matter? We'll see. I also have slight issues about Paul Stastny's contract as well. I think he'll be good in here, but I don't think he'll be able to be Colorado Avalanche Paul Stastny. So those two contracts really question. If Fleury would have got a 1 or 2 year extension on top of his deal, I could have seen that, because based on what we're seeing here with, what do you call him, the league's best Carlson?
League's best Carlson, yes.
Arbitration's probably going to provide him with 2 years, correct? Well, they're going to provide the number, but I'm assuming that usually that's about a 1 year, 2 year deal.
It's 1 or 2 year, and that's kind of why I don't mind the Fleury contract, because it's George McPhee telling William Karlsson, we take care of our players.
Fair enough.
Therefore, once your arbitration contract is over, we will take care of you. And he showed that by paying Fleury. Plus, let's not forget that if he does get 2 years, that's when Clarkson's contract comes off the books. So that's $5.25 million that they're saving as well.
Right. I mean, as far as I figured, you kind of took my point right there, which is okay, because I wanted to move right into that. When Clarkson's contract comes off the books, it's immediately filled by Fleury at that point. In my opinion, I mean, Clarkson was 5.5, and I think Fleury's 7. So essentially, 5.25.
Yeah.
So yeah, call it what you want. I think those essentially would cancel each other out. I mean, obviously a little bit more towards Fleury. The question is yes, they probably show McPhee, and McPhee's shown that a lot because he's made some commitments to guys who maybe he shouldn't have in the past, and whatever. He's been really,
England.
I was talking about with the Capitals, but yeah, sure.
Yeah, whatever.
The question is if Karlsson goes, the next 2 years at $5 million a year or so, if he goes 13 and 18. That kid's not getting paid like he should have been paid, like for this year. If he was in UFA this year, he would have hit the open market and maybe gotten 6 or 7, like in the Fleury range.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you can tell him that. I mean, going back to the DeMar DeRozan trade, the week before, and I know I'm flipping sports here. The week before, they were like, "We will not trade you," and then the next day, he's on a plane to San Antonio. So again, there's not necessarily a need for loyalty in sports. I mean, you're a business. If he goes $5 million a year and goes 13 and 18, as far as in points, he's in the 40s or so. I mean, I can't see George McPhee stepping up, even though he said we'll take care of you. I mean, I think he'll say we'll take care of you, but you got to take care of us too.
Well, and remember too that the Knights have been, the plan for the Knights all along has been to have the young guys come up in a few years. So, like when Clarkson's contract comes off the books, once Karlsson has to get paid, once Fleury's new contract kicks in. You still get Stastny, Smith, Marchessault, who all have bigger deals. That's when you're going to fill out your roster with the guys like Nick Holden, Eric Brandstrom, Zach Whitecloud,
Haig,
Cody Glass,
Suzuki, all those guys.
Didn't Haig just sign with the KHL? Yeah, the guy that we traded from Vancouver, right?
No, that was Philip Holm.
Holm, that's it. Sorry, I always get those guys mixed up.
Nick Haig was a second-round draft pick in the Cody Glass.
Okay, yeah. So Glass, Suzuki's coming up, Brandstrom's coming up. So there are enough young guys on short money contracts that paying these kinds of $7 million to Fleury, probably the $6 that Karlsson's going to get, like these kinds of contracts don't bother me at all.
Right, and I understand that. And again, that's going to be a time when we look at the roster, and here you have to make decisions on Cody Eakin, probably gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In 2 years. Eric Holla. Maybe. We'll see. He's a UFA after 2 years. I mean, he may want to be a locked-up candidate after next year, an extension.
I'd like to see him get extension, but I need to see him improve his defense because I think he was the worst on the team, plus minus this year.
if not like bottom 3. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was terrible.
But now they're going to move him to wings. So let's see if his scoring production,
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
So, anyways, like I said, it's kind of a mixed bag with Fleury, and I think you're right, because any given team that has cup aspirations, especially in 2 years, the question is, in 2 years, I mean, Fleury, correct me if I'm wrong, is going to be 35 at that point? So we have an average goaltender who, so let's see, 84, what's that? So that's 34 right now?
34, yeah.
So in 2 years, he'll be 36.
Yeah.
Actually, he's going to turn 35 in the middle of this season. So in 2 years, he'll be 37 almost in the middle of the season. So now you're looking at, all these young guys coming up making a contribution, guys like, who you just mentioned, and Tomas Hica, and Alex Tuch's going to have to get re-signed after this year.
Right, and Schmidt after this year as well.
Yeah, you're right. So, I mean...
So these are guys that are going to have to get paid, but, again, they're still... How much? What's the cap room after 2 years? Like 45, I think? It's a ridiculous number, so, again, I'm not...
No, you're right. I mean, I'll try to find it here, but, yeah, I mean,
I know this year they've still got decent money, too.
Yeah, this year there's...
In 2 years, they've only got 21 committed to... Or, excuse me, not 21. They've only got 44 committed to 2021 at that point.
Yeah, so that's, 60-something or 50-something.
It leaves them $35 million open.
Right now we have just under 14 mil open.
Oh, in 2018? Yeah, right now we have 13.9 open right now.
Okay.
So the question is with that kind of cap space that's coming open, with a guy who is coming off a 43-goal season, would he be willing to take? Let me look back at Marchessault. I think Marchessault and Smith have the same contract, $5 million a year. Would you think offering him six for 30 at an AAV of 5? I mean, do you think he would take that right now, considering he is? Correct me if I'm wrong. He is 25 years old.
6 for 30?
And if he only gets better, I think 5 is a deal.
Oh, absolutely, it is.
But I mean, I
don't know that he'd take it though. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, he may. I mean, the thing is, I thought when they re-signed Marchessault or extended Marchessault, that would be almost a barometer for Karlsson's contract. Because Marchessault has been a guy who has put up 30 goals in this league before on, I think, 2 occasions, and has put up decent point numbers in Florida and his 1 year in Tampa Bay. So I thought maybe, Karlsson as a blessing, because he may never do this 43 again, and odds are he's probably not going to.
Right.
So at $5 million a year, maybe even 5.5 to anchor that line that produced record points, to put him at 6 for 33 or somewhere around those lines, I don't think that's an awful offer at this point, rather than dragging him out, because we all know how arbitrations go. You have to almost kind of downplay your player and in effect to pay him less.
Right. And
I don't think McPhee's doing that. I honestly think they're going to the arbitration meeting, presenting a case of he scored 43, he had 18 combined. That's our. They're not going to. I don't think they're going to. I don't think McPhee and the organization has anything bad to say about Karlsson. I think they're okay with taking whatever number that is offered, because I don't think the arbitrator is going to go in the $7 million range. I think the arbitrator is going to go 5.5. That's my
5.5, maybe 6.
I don't even think they're going to go 6. I think 5.5 is right where they're going to go for him for 2 years. So 2 years, $11 million.
Yeah, and let's be honest too, that Karlsson thus far has been a one-hit wonder. So even though this is
call him what you want, yeah.
Even though this is the 1 year that he did it was his RFA year or the arbitration year, he still has. The team wants to make sure that he can do at least 25, 30 before they start offering him big contracts and long term.
Go ahead.
So, no, I just. I know that McPhee offering a 6th year at 30, 33, I think makes sense to a certain degree, but I think McPhee, who, while he was in Washington, was a notorious cheapskate, is going to want to see at least one more year of production out of Karlsson. Because, I mean, this year he had 43 goals, last year he had 9.
Right, and you say that McPhee was a cheapskate, but he came in, 20? He was a GM for 18, 19 years or whatever in Washington. He came into a cap that was already set up. This guy, I mean, he's on blank check right now.
True.
I mean, he has created, this whole team has been created by him. That's another reason why I like Paul Stastny. I'm not sure I understand the 6.5, because from what I understand, even Winnipeg wasn't offering him that. And the thing is between Winnipeg's tax, the fact they weren't offering him a contract, I don't know of everybody else who was offering him a contract, but Vegas' ability to actually, this is another thing with the Neal contract, Vegas' ability to actually pay him more because of the state tax, or the lack of state tax, and the fact that Canadian tax, I believe, is almost 50%. Correct me if I'm wrong?
I think that's pretty close. I think it's right around 45 to 50. Yeah.
So I feel like to offer him $6.5 million for a guy who, I mean, I don't think he's touched 50 points since Colorado. Correct me if I'm wrong there. I'll have to get the crack research staff to look at that.
Yeah, I don't know that one.
But, I mean, I don't dislike the player. I just don't know if I like the contract as far as, again, you can pay these guys right now. I just don't, I mean, he's going to be the number 2 center, correct? Or number 1, depending on how you look at the lines. I always thought the Haula, Neal, and Perron line, while it didn't produce, I always felt like it was the number 1 line as far as being able to take faceoffs and get the dirty work in. The Carlson line always seemed like the Showtime Lakers kind of line. I know that's a weird analogy, but I'm just saying they always seemed like, Marchessault always had that flair. Riley was the quiet one, and Carlson was kind of in between. He was modified, but he was also a little bit excitable. So I don't know. I just, to me, I think Stastny and Neal, and correct me if I'm wrong, might be the same player at this point in their career. And I think we could have got Neal for less money. I know they're not. I know one's a center and one's a wing, but I mean, Haula could have stayed on the wing. I mean, Haula could have stayed at center.
I don't know if I'd call them the same player. Yeah, you might be right. I mean, they're pretty similar. I don't know if. God, I don't know. I feel like the upside on Stastny is so much higher because he's a faster player, and
well, he was in Colorado in 13, 14? He got traded to the Blues a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Do you have his point totals?
Who, Carlson?
No, Stastny.
I don't know.
I thought you heard me say, look up Stastny's points total. God damn it. Where's the stat geek, or where's the crack research staff when you need him?
I'm pulling it up.
All right.
So, I don't know. To me, it just seemed like, because obviously Neal was a fan-friendly. That's evidence. Everybody liked him. Nobody wanted to see him go. And the way, when he signed that contract with Calgary for $28 million over 5 years, again, I believe the Canadian tax is at almost 50% clip. So
it's right around there, yeah.
He's got to be taking a huge hit, and he kept saying, I don't want to leave here. So what did McPhee know or see that he was unwilling to offer him a deal?
All right. Well, I can actually give you the Canadian income tax that I have here, and actually it's less than I expected. It's 33%. The Canadian federal marginal tax rates of taxable income.
That's the federal. Is there a province?
There's a provincial one as well, and in Manitoba it's 17.5.
Well, that would be Alberta. Calgary. Manitoba's the Jets. Are you talking about Stastny?
Yeah, Stastny.
Okay, I thought we were talking about Neal. Okay,
sorry.
yeah. So Stastny, so it's 17, so that's 50%.
Yeah, and Alberta's 15%.
So Alberta is 40. What do we say? 48. So you're cutting your contract in half.
Stastny points totals last year was 53.
Okay, it's not terrible.
Yeah.
But that was between St. Louis and Winnipeg. When's the last time he had 60-plus points? I mean, you got to figure a guy making 6.25 is a 60-plus point.
Yeah, just go last 5-year total goals. Because Neal's been over 20 every year he's been in the league, basically.
Right.
So I want to see where Stastny is.
Stastny's last 50-plus point season was 2013 with Colorado.
That's what I thought, yeah.
2013-14 season.
So when he was traded to St. Louis, he took a little bit of a dip, but that may be...
Well, he was high 40s the first 2 years and then went down a little.
In St. Louis?
Yeah.
Right, so, I mean, his career regressed as far as going into... I mean, that's why they traded him, but I was surprised I got a first-round pick as far as St. Louis. But my point being is I feel like keeping a fan favorite at that point with a winger, unless they really believe that Erik Haula is going to blossom, because at that point you're going to have your first line, which we already know, the SMK line. I don't know of a nickname for it. That's just Smith, Marchessault, Carlson.
Yeah, they don't really have a nickname, do they? It's just been called the Carlson line.
Yeah. Well, usually if they don't have a nickname, they're labeled by their center. So
yeah,
Wild Bills.
And then you figure your second line is going to be Stastny in the middle, Haula on the wing. Who's going to take the other wing spot? Tuck or Tatar?
It's either it's one of those two. Depends on the fit, and I think Tuck probably fits a little bit better because Tatar is kind of a speedy little guy, whereas Tuck can provide a little bit of beef on that line, which they
and
kinda
create
need.
some screening in front of the net too.
Yeah.
Well, that plus you got a second line full of lefties. If you go with Tatar, you have Holla, Stastny, and Tatar. That's a second line full of lefties that might not produce the best option.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, you always want one on the opposite side usually.
So then you have a third line of let's look at it. I mean, you have a third line of what at this point? Is
Eakin, Tatar, and Carpenter.
I feel for whatever reason I feel even though we only lost Perron and Neal, we feel very thin this year.
Yeah.
So, anywho, so we could probably talk about that a little more closer to.
Oh no, it's probably going to be Nosek on that third line. Move Nosek up and then keep
Tatar on fourth.
Tatar, Eakin, Tatar, Nosek on the third, and then the fourth would be like
Bellemare, Reeves, and
Reeves, and either Carpenter or Carrier. Yeah,
they got to get Carrier. Is Carrier going to?
He's RFA. Yeah, he's going to arbitration.
He's going to arbitration too. I mean, I can't imagine he gets more than 1.2 at most.
Yeah.
So that'll keep clean. Do we expect to see any of these young guys up next year? I mean, White Cloud already was with the team, and correct me if I'm wrong. He played one game this year, so
I think that was
I lost a prop bet to somebody. Actually, no, I don't think it's one of you guys. I think it was somebody else, but I lost a prop bet that he actually played in a game this year.
Yeah, he did.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it was either one or two, but it was at the end of the season when they already had the division locked up.
Yeah.
And it was on the road, too. I don't think he played at home.
I mean, obviously, we're not expected to see Brandstrom, Glass, or Suzuki, but is there anybody else in this? I mean, do we expect to see any Reed Duke action at this year, or Oscar Dance to come up and play, other than injury, obviously?
Yeah, well, barring injury, I think Duke's going to be given a chance to get a roster spot for sure.
What about Hika or Peary? I think Peary could be a contributor on the third or fourth line this year.
Can you imagine the speed of that third line with like Hika, Tatar, and either Peary or Glass? If Glass somehow
that'd be disgustingly nice.
There's not a chance that those guys make it, right? Glass, Suzuki.
I can't imagine because they're still going to want to marinate in the minors, but.
Because I mean, if
stranger things have happened. Who knows?
But I mean, if you're using their entry levels, I mean, they're making $890 at this point.
Yeah.
If one of them's NHL ready to play third line, or I mean, let's see. Let me look at Cody Eakin at this point doesn't have a no trade clause. I mean, you can maybe get some value in a couple picks for him and slide in Glass or Suzuki at this point. So it'd be nice to have them on an entry level at that point. You know, even in their third year, their entry level, to have them in NHL ready would be pretty cool. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'd love to see Suzuki come up. He's the one that I'm most excited to see.
He's the one that scored like 60 goals this year, wasn't he? Or was that Glass? Who was the one that played for Portland?
That was Portland. Oh my God,
the Winterhawks. That was Suzuki, correct?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, he was the one. I think he scored like 50 goals this year. So yeah, he'd be interesting.
Yeah, when he was drafted, because he was drafted like 13th, 15th, whatever that second pick in the first round was. Yeah. He was called the smartest player in the draft, and that goes a long way. If that type of player has the talent to make an NHL roster, that type of intelligence goes a long way to keeping a team together. Like that's a Patrice Bergeron type player.
It benefits the whole line when they're on the ice, as well as like key mismatches on the fly as well.
Oh yeah.
Well, you got to figure, like you said, like if it takes 3 more years for those two to come up, or 2 more years, you know, those guys play third and fourth while Stastny and Carlson play, and if Carlson doesn't pan out on his 2-year deal, then you've got one of those guys to slide right in on the last end of the entry level, or the first NHL contract they receive, which again won't be. You know, what's Carlson making right now, as we're aware of, because that'll probably be the contract around there that. Crap, I can't see it. It was his previous contract, but he was only making, I think he was making like $1 million or something like that. Whatever the qualifying offer was, I think he was right around there. So, anyways, we'll have a lot more summer to talk about hockey and Vegas hockey. But just last final thought: what in your opinion of all the NHL teams was the best signing? So there were some good ones, there were some bad ones. I mean, Tavares obviously jumps out, but I mean, again. $88 million or $90 million, whatever it was, for a second line guy. I mean, obviously he's going to play second line. They're not going to break up that Matthews line, correct?
No, of course not. Yeah, they got to keep him second line. Now, the big question that I was seeing asked quite a bit is whether Tavares would jump right into the captaincy again.
Who was their one now? It wasn't Marlowe.
No, Marlowe was an assistant, so it would be, or alternate. It would be.
I know what you meant.
Yeah. Is it Matthews? No, it can't be Matthews.
Who's the Toronto captain? That's a good question. It wasn't the Ilya Kovalchuk signing, was it?
I don't believe so, no.
What are your thoughts on that one?
I wish him all the best in trying to reignite his career in the NHL.
One I did like, actually, that didn't get a lot of pub was Michael Grabner. I really wanted him to come to Vegas, but he signed with Arizona, which seemed like strange to me unless we had no intention of offering. That's like a 25-goal guy that could have played third line and been real competitive in this spot. As another guy, I wish Vegas or maybe even Tampa would have signed. So that's a thought on mine was as far as the best free agent signings.
Yeah, I'm not even really, just deals that have been made in the offseason that I think are good. The two that jump out at me, one that I like quite a bit is Jimmy Vesey signing for another 2 years in New York. I think he's got a lot of upside. I think he's proven that he can play at the NHL level. He's got something like 30 goals, and 10 or 15 of them have been game winners. It's just...
He was an RFA, correct?
Yeah, and they re-signed him. Same. The other one that I really like is Matt Dumba, staying in Minnesota.
Another good defenseman.
Yeah, and he was actually one of the guys that Vegas was going to target, which is why Minnesota said, all right, if you take Holla, we'll give you Tuck.
Well,
and they did that in order to protect Dumba, and now that they're wrapped up Dumba for
5 years. I think it's 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. So, they've. I definitely like that extension as well.
Any guesses to who the last captain was for Toronto?
Ever.
If
it's not Matthews, who is it?
No, hold on.
It's not Matt. It's not.
It has to be a while ago. I'm going to say Wendell Clark.
That's a good guess, but no.
Okay.
Joffrey Lupul?
No, it was Dion Phaneuf.
Oh, Phaneuf!
Yeah, though.
Have you had Phaneuf or are you ready for more? That's the only thing I can think of when I see him.
Last 2 seasons, they had no captain.
That's why I didn't think it, but I was like...
They had alternate captains last year. They had 3 of them. Bozak, Komarov, and Riley.
I thought you said Marlowe.
I thought Marlowe was one. I could have sworn Marlowe was one. Maybe I'm wrong.
Sounds like you are.
Yeah, but I would have put money on that.
I mean, unless if they had 3 home and 3 away, and they're just showing the home ones right now.
Oh, yeah.
Like Vegas had.
Yeah.
Either way. But, I mean, I could see Matthews not being. He's only been in the league 2 years. I mean, I can see him not being an alternate.
Yeah, but those teams, they love the young superstars that they think are going to be on the team for 20 years. They're going to give them the captaincy in, year 3.
I mean, we saw that with Stamkos. We saw that with McDavid.
Fucking they gave it to Lindros when he was 18.
Yeah.
When he came in the league.
But, well, I can't speak for Lindros, but I mean, I feel like McDavid and Stamkos are a little bit more of a polished, mature player. Not that Matthews is bad. I just feel like he's a little less polished, a little more fire in the ice, a little less level-headed than from what I've seen.
He has a little chipping away to get away.
No, I just think that, and especially the thing is while Tavares was a Toronto guy and, Toronto-born and, all the stuff he said when he signed, Matthews is an American. So I wonder if, even with the captaincy, I could see him coming back to the States when his contract's up.
That would be interesting.
So maybe not offering him the captaincy, because while we sit here and go, yeah, slap a C on somebody, I think to actual clubs that means a little bit more than just slapping C's around. You know what I'm saying? Marlowe would have been a good fit, however, for him to just come in after 20 years of, I assume he was the captain in San Jose.
Yeah, it was Jumbo Joe for a while. Then he got stripped in 2010, I think. And I think after that it was Marlowe.
So, I mean, for him to come in and try to be the captain there would have been fine. I mean, I don't think anybody would have had a huge issue with it. But like I said, if he goes after the next year, then you're trying to find another captain, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe that's when you hand it to Matthews. I don't know. But speaking of Jumbo Joe, he got his little Twilight deal there, 1 year, $5 million.
Yeah, that's a thank you for your service type deal.
Yeah. What about Evander Kane getting $50 million and's never really crossed the 50-point threshold?
He's a name. He can put up numbers when he wants to. I don't know. That was a signing I didn't like. I think they overpaid him.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we didn't hear any of anybody else really offering offers, and they gave up, quite a package to get him. So, the more and more I look at this, I start to look at the fact that some of these markets have to overpay after you factor in income tax. I never really thought about that as a younger fan.
Yep.
That's why the Neal contract baffles me so much, unless McPhee absolutely did not make him an offer, which, depending on who you believe, is true, or someone said he was offered 4 for $20. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, and that report was refuted by Neal's girlfriend, which I don't know how much she actually knows about the inner workings of the contracts coming in and everything else. But
wasn't she the one who also said they wanted to stay by any means necessary, and they're clearly not here?
Yeah, that I didn't know. But
well, she said they really wanted to stay. I think she's a TV personality here or something.
Maybe. I
don't know. Whatever it was, but she's like, we wanted to stay here, as best as we could, and well, he's not here anymore. So, so maybe he had a gambling addiction. I know that there was a lot of people who said that he was always at Red Rock gambling. So,
really?
I don't know if that's an addiction necessarily, but maybe he had an issue with gambling. I don't know.
Man, how could he give up probably president or chairman status?
Yeah, he could
don't fly him out.
He could get 3 for 1 at the Feast Buffet. No one else gets that.
God, of all the worthless top tier fucking casino levels you could get,
I don't know him. I mean, I know I have information about a couple of them, but I don't know the one at Station Casino.
Yeah, it's
useless pretty much.
You get like bonus points and you get a discount at the gift shop and on rooms, and I think that's about it.
You don't even get free rooms?
I don't think so.
Maybe during select dead dates.
Yeah. But like if you're going to get anything, it's got to be the Caesar's Diamond, right? Over the MGM.
Caesar's Diamond is the best of that status of cards.
Right.
100%. Between the free rooms, the lounge being free, depending on how high you get. Mm-hmm. The perks, obviously the parking.
Yeah, but even the MGM one doesn't compare.
No, they're very. It's hard to get at MGM, and 2, they don't have a lot of perks and offerings when you do get it, unless you get the Noir, which is obviously the equivalent of the 7-star.
I've heard about that one.
But the tier below, which is I believe Platinum at MGM, does not have the same effects or same perks or same benefits as the Diamond status at Caesars.
Yeah.
Well, it is true. There's 3 levels of Diamond. I mean, I know that we're getting off the rails here. But
yeah, we're really way out.
That's
my fault.
Names,
yeah. Damn it, Spike!
I know. This is why I haven't been invited in like 2 months.
Well, we basically wake up one day and I think we have a 3-hour window to squeeze in a podcast. But
it's been a while. Why not shoot?
So, anyways, we definitely appreciate you tuning in to whatever the hell we just said for the last 45 minutes. We want to thank our sponsors, 12 Ounce Radio, for putting on this dribble, and our sponsors, ChaiPoker.net, for also being supportive of us. We got to use that gift card they gave us for some food, probably next week or something.
Oh, yeah.
Get some Grubhub. But anyways, for Spike, for Anthony, I am Aaron. We appreciate you listening. We'll talk to you on the other side.